Hello, I'm Esther Githu-Ewart. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. Israeli forces raid the biggest functioning hospital in Gaza. An Israeli military spokesperson described the action as precise and limited. Millions of young people in Zambia struggle with securing employment after graduation and rely on their parents for daily survival. And a 22-year-old Zimbabwean with cerebral palsy hopes to compete in the 2024 Special Olympics Winter Games. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. We begin in the Middle East, where the Israeli-Hamas war is ongoing, and Lebanon's state-run news agency and security sources say the civilian death toll from 2 Israeli strikes has now risen to 10, making it the single deadliest day in more than 4 months of nearly daily cross-border exchanges. The strike on the building late on Wednesday killed at least 3 women, several children, and a man, according to the director of the town's hospital, Hassan Wazni, and other security sources. 7 people were also wounded, Wazni told Reuters. A woman and 2 children were killed in another strike earlier in the day. Hezbollah says it will retaliate. Israeli forces say they raided the biggest functioning hospital in Gaza on Thursday. Newly obtained video shows chaos in Al-Nasser hospital and people gathering in corridors that were filled with dust and smoke. An Israeli military spokesperson described the raid on Nasser hospital as precise and limited and says it was based on credible information that Hamas was hiding in the facility. A spokesperson for Hamas called Israel's claim lies. Israel's air and ground offensive has devastated Gaza, killing over 28,000 people, also mostly civilian, according to Hamas-run health authorities in Gaza, and forcing nearly all its inhabitants from their homes. West Bank Palestinians say that since the October 7th Hamas attack, Israeli settlers have significantly increased acts of violence against them, with the aim of forcing the Palestinians to abandon their homes. A settler council denies these allegations, saying the incidents have decreased. Linda Grantstein reports from the South Hebron Hills of the West Bank.
Violent confrontations between Israeli settlers and Palestinians in the West Bank have intensified over the past year under Israel's right-wing government. But the incidents have doubled since the October 7th Hamas attack and ensuing war, according to OSHA, the UN's humanitarian organization. Palestinian farmers and shepherds say many settlers receive guns from the government and are acting as vigilantes.
The situation is terrible. It was bad before, and it has gotten worse. The whole war, we haven't been able to get to our fields. The olives are still on the trees. If we try to go to the trees, the settlers shoot at us.
This is Area C, the 60% of the West Bank under complete Israeli control. It's where all the Jewish settlements are built. These settlements are illegal according to international law. Israeli government hardliners have long sought to annex this area and pressure the Palestinians to move to areas under Palestinian control. Since October 7th, Palestinians have evacuated at least 16 communities in Area C, according to Israeli human rights group B'Tselem, saying that they were forced out because of settlers attacking their families and property.
We used to have problems with settlers, but after the war in Gaza, they even wanted to kill all of us.
Jewish settler representatives contend that while Palestinian attacks against Israelis in 2023 were the highest in 20 years, settler attacks against Palestinians decreased.
IDF, citing police reports, said that after the October 7th attack, violence carried out by Jews in Judea and Samaria actually dropped by around 50% in the month of October, and then another 50% in the month of November. So anybody who thinks that in response to October 7th, Jews are becoming more vigilante or carrying other attacks, the statistics do not back that at all.
This claim is refuted by the Israeli and international volunteers who support and protect the South Hebron Hills Palestinians from settler harassment.
Let's start with the day, October 7th, which we all remember somewhat traumatically. a system of really violent attacks on the Palestinians in Area C was like as a sort of revenge attack, but also as a way of saying, we've got our opportunity, now we can get rid of them. Almost every village in Area C had at least one, if not several, violent attacks, many of them on October 7th itself.
The U.S. and U.K. governments have also expressed concerns about reports of an increase in settler attacks against Palestinians. They have even taken the unprecedented step of imposing sanctions against at least 4 Jewish settlers accused of violence. Linda Gradstein, VOA News, South Hebron Hills.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is heading to Albania and then to Germany this week for the Munich Security Conference. Among issues he will likely face in Europe is the stalling of military aid to Ukraine in the U.S. House and former President Donald Trump's comments threatening to abandon some NATO allies if he is re-elected. VOA senior diplomatic correspondent Cindy Sain reports from the State Department.
As Russia continues to attack Kharkiv and other Ukrainian cities, experts warn that U.S. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson's refusal to allow a vote on an aid package to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan is resulting in deaths, with Kyiv running short on manpower and munitions. President Joe Biden outlined the stakes Tuesday, saying supporting the bill sends a crucial message to Russian President Vladimir Putin.
If we don't stop Putin's appetite for power and control in Ukraine, he won't limit himself just to Ukraine. And the cost for America and our allies and partners are going to rise. For Republicans in Congress who think they can oppose funding for Ukraine and not be held accountable, history is watching.
It is against this backdrop that Secretary of State Antony Blinken is making his first trip to Albania and then heading to the Munich Security Conference. He plans a slew of bilateral meetings with his counterparts from Germany, Ukraine, India, and a number of other countries, including possibly China. Some comments from the likely Republican presidential nominee, former President Donald Trump, threatened to overshadow the security talks. Trump said last week that he had once told a NATO member that he would not protect certain allies from Russia, and he has continually pressured Republican members of Congress not to approve aid for Ukraine. At the State Department Wednesday, VOA asked whether U.S. domestic politics would put Blinken in a difficult position in Munich. Spokesperson Matthew Miller said this.
And certainly I'm sure that when we are in Munich, we will hear directly from foreign leaders that they are watching very much what Congress does. We know the Ukrainian people are watching, and as the president said, history is watching as well.
Republican lawmakers are divided over continued U.S. funding for Ukraine. Republican Representative Pete Sessions told VOA that the U.S. has promised Ukraine its support.
The Democrats in the Senate have passed what I consider to be a good funding bill to supply Ukraine with its needs. The bottom line really is for Ukraine, they need help with artillery and armaments that the United States has the supply of.
On Tuesday, the Democrat-led Senate, with bipartisan support, passed the $95 billion foreign aid bill, which included $60 billion for Ukraine. Sessions said he believes Congress will manage to pass the aid bill one way or the other. Cindy Sain, VOA News, the State Department.
A 17-year-old girl in the U.S. has her heart and eyes on South Sudan. Bridget Taylor began her philanthropic work at age 15. Her organization, Help Kids to Live, supports orphaned children and others from poor families return to school by funding their education and providing textbooks. She joins me here to tell us more. Bridget, welcome to Africa 54.
Hi, it's nice to be here.
You know, it's amazing at your age you started this idea, but where did the idea come from and why South Sudan?
Well, my brother and my father were already working on projects in South Sudan, and they already visited too. So we are already very familiar with the country, and I thought it was a great place to start off my work and my projects.
Tell us about the children you support.
Well, through my organization, Help Kids to Live, I help children in orphanages across South Sudan, like Straight Link Orphanage or Divine Mercy Action Orphanage. And I help them through money donations and building material donations because many of the children there, about 85 boys and girls ranging from the ages of 3 to 19, they sleep in tents or they sleep in small rooms in a single compound. So I donated about $30,000 in building supplies and money to them. But furthermore, I also help young women in South Sudan through gifting scholarships. And one of the young women I already awarded a scholarship to has already completed her first year at the University of Juba.
Wow, that's amazing. You're still in high school. You haven't even graduated. But, you know, when you were in Juba, and I know you're in touch with them all the time, what do you see as their greatest need?
Well, among their many needs, I see one of the greatest needs being educational, and they require books and textbooks because most of their libraries are completely bare, and it's hard to learn and even harder to teach without books or textbooks. And as some people may or may not know, thousands of schools in the nation of the United States throw away their unused books and textbooks because they're no longer part of the curriculum. So by collecting these unused books and textbooks, I can donate them to the schools in South Sudan, and I plan on shipping them there through cargo ship holders. And we already have about 50,000 books and textbooks to donate to the schools there. However, we still require the money to ship them. So if any people watching would like to donate, they can do so at helpkidstolive.org.
Wow, that's amazing. So when do you plan to visit South Sudan next? When do you want to see those kids again?
I plan on visiting South Sudan again this summer, and I can't wait to see the children again and talk to them and play with them and eat with them. I'm really excited to see them again and catch up on all they're doing.
Is there somebody who comes to mind that you can talk to us about that has benefited from this and eyeing, college, either here or back in Africa or in South Sudan?
Well, one of the young women I gifted a scholarship to, Clara, she was the one who completed her first year at the University of Juba, and we're planning on gifting her another year at the University of Juba because each year they do good at the university, we give them the money to continue at the university. So she can vouch that she's very grateful, and I'm grateful that I met her too.
I understand that you are also getting support from Fairfax County Public Schools to send more books there. But what is your vision for these students?
My vision is that they have the books they need and that they can read and borrow the books, because libraries that do have books, like at the University of Juba, you can only see the books while you're in the library. You can't check them out, you can't study them. So my vision is that they'll have enough books and textbooks that they can borrow them and truly obtain the knowledge from the books and absorb the material inside the books by borrowing them and having enough that everyone can share a textbook and learn.
Now, you also have another organization. How does it differ from this one? And who else is involved in that one, and what are you doing?
Well, my other organization called Spread Your Wings, about 4 years ago, it was created through myself and my brother's two friends, Mallory and Phoebe, and we focus on women's education and advocacy because many women in South Sudan get married off at a young age and don't have the opportunity to an education. So we picked out 3 young women to receive awards that will allow them to go to universities in Juba. And we decided this through essays that they wrote. And in the end, when I visited South Sudan, I had the honor of awarding these 3 young women, Clara, Catherine, and Miriam, their scholarships.
Wow. Bridget, you are amazing. At 15, now 17, and doing so much good. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Bridget Toller is founder of Help Kids to Live. After years of focusing on oil and gas, Nigerian authorities are taking a new look at the mining industry as part of their drive to diversify the economy. But the country is still reeling from environmental damage caused by old mining operations and illegal mining that continues. Timothy Obiezu reports.
Phoebe Gang has been illegally digging for 3 years to find one of central Nigeria's most precious minerals, tin. This is one site out of many in Plateau State where thousands of locals are trying to make quick cash by mining. Gang says she makes about $15 a week and it's worth all the risk.
If government don't want us to do it, then let's provide something for us. Let's provide food or job for us, because we cannot just follow our hand like that and be watching.
When found, the tin is washed and separated from the sand. It is then weighed, bought, smelted and sold to larger companies for use primarily in electronics. Nigeria has rich deposits of more than 40 different minerals, according to the country's Geological Survey Agency, and the government wants to increase its mining operations. But farmer Emmanuel Simon says he's still suffering from mines that used to operate in the region.
Since we were kids, they started tin mining in our village and our farmland has been destroyed. We no longer farm in those areas, and even if we did, we won't get any harvest no matter how much fertilizer we applied. We won't get anything.
The wells created by the digging are often not covered and sometimes turn into large gullies that make farming impossible. Abandoned mining ponds also pose danger to locals, especially children. Between September and October last year, more than 30 people died in mining sites in the area, according to the Plateau Indigenous Miners Association. But authorities like Peter Gwom, Plateau State's Commissioner for Environment, Climate Change and Mineral Development, say the country wants to take advantage of the demand for Nigerian minerals.
There's been a resurgence of mining again globally, not just here on the plateau. Demand globally has spiked due to this particular minerals used to build, the new things that we use in the world today, especially our computers, phones, vehicles, batteries, and so on. And that's why we see it's almost like a gold rush. So many people are coming here.
Gwom says any new mining licenses will come with agreements to minimize environmental damage and create value by ensuring companies set up processing facilities here in Nigeria. Authorities are also trying to bring the illegally operating small miners back under the rule of law.
The government is looking at, we don't want to address them anymore as illegal miners. We're looking at them as artisanal miners, and we're bunching them into cooperatives and giving them the needed tools for them to be able to mine in a safe manner.
In the meantime, people like Gang say they will continue their illegal search for tin and the money to keep their families housed and fed. Timothy Obiezu, VOA News, Jos, Plateau State, Nigeria.
Millions of young Zambians are struggling with securing employment after graduation and continue to rely on their parents to get by. 82% of the country's population is below the age of 35. According to the United Nations, in 2018, Zambia's unemployment rate among young people was 41%. 3 graduates from Lusaka shared their experiences in searching for jobs with Kathy Short.
My first qualification from the University of Zambia was a Bachelor of Arts with Education. I majored in English with Curriculum Studies. The challenge that I began to face after the excitement of graduating from the University of Zambia with great grades, I say excellent grades, was first of all that there was no room for me in the place that I thought I would firstly be working. That's the education sector. That's where I was targeting. That's where I was sending all my application letters. Even when the government had opened up to employ a bit more teachers, I applied, and we all know the strategy, applying in the rural areas so that you get picked, but it didn't happen. So the disappointment, firstly, that even the place of work that you were being prepared for when you were in university may not actually have room for you to work is quite the shock.
My experience with looking for a job in Zambia has been very challenging, just like it is in most African countries. Here in Zambia, when you are looking for a job, mostly in the private sector, you find that they request for a certain number of experience, which is quite hard for the young people, because the young people are just coming out of school, and for them to get a job, they're being asked for 5 years experience. And so now the question would be, how do we afford such experience if we're just fresh graduates that are trying to gain experience? So that's one of the challenges. The other challenge could be a lack of opportunity itself. There are very few job opportunities in Africa and Zambia as well, with the government only recruiting people from a certain particular profession, like teachers and health workers. That leaves a lot of people that are not in those fields with a very small pool to find jobs, because that becomes hard, and the experience has really been hard from that background.
Young people in Mozambique aspire to pursue formal education and secure a job, but they say that entering the professional market has become increasingly challenging and opportunities are scarce. On Friday, journalist Amarilis Gule talks to some people who shared their job hunting experiences. So be sure to join Africa 54 on Friday. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and all our VOA Africa programs on our website at voaafrica.com. Still to come, a Zimbabwean with a cerebral palsy hopes to compete in the 2024 Special Olympics Winter Games. We'll be right back.
More than 80 million persons with disabilities live in Africa, according to the United Nations. These include mental health conditions as well as physical impairment. On this week's episode of Our Voices, we will discuss the obstacles to disabilities inclusion in the workplace. We will also explore why it is especially important to include women with disabilities in decision-making while fostering inclusion of talented people with disabilities. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
In other news, the United Nations says the emergency global stockpile of cholera vaccines is empty, with all available doses for February already allocated to countries like Zambia and Zimbabwe that are battling major outbreaks. Cholera is caused by bacteria spread in contaminated food and water and can kill within hours without treatment. Children under 5 are at particular risk. French Foreign Minister Stéphane Séjourné says France in April is hosting a humanitarian conference to provide aid to conflict-stricken Sudan. Fighting for control of Sudan erupted last April between Sudan's army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. The United Nations says around 25 million Sudanese need aid, including nearly 18 million who face acute food insecurity. And Uganda is negotiating with Tanzania to import its oil product through Dar es Salaam, which would mean an end to imports through Kenya's Mombasa port, according to Uganda's energy minister. Uganda has been dissatisfied with the long-standing system under which its fuel companies buy 90% of their supplies through affiliated firms in Kenya. A 22-year-old Zimbabwean with a cerebral palsy is hoping to compete in the 2024 Special Olympics in Canada Winter Games in Calgary from February 27th to March 2nd. Meanwhile, groups that advocate for disabled people's rights are hoping to turn government policy into law. Columbus Mavunga reports from Harare, Zimbabwe.
In Ufakose Township in Harare, Zimbabwe, Tapiwa Nashe Prince Mutsikira spends his time running and training students at his former school, some of whom have disabilities. Mutsikira, a 22-year-old runner with cerebral palsy, hopes his hard work will help him qualify to represent Zimbabwe in track competitions at the 2024 Special Olympics Canada Winter Games in Calgary from February 27 to March 2.
If I get the opportunity to go compete at the Olympics, it will really be exciting. I tell my colleagues that they can do the same, that with their disabilities, they can also compete. Do not look down on yourselves.
He maintains a positive outlook despite having cerebral palsy, a group of disorders that affect a person's ability to move and maintain balance and posture. His grandmother Tambudzai Rujizonyariri, who began caring for Mutsikiram when he was 3, says at one point she could not imagine her grandson training and competing like this.
We thank God for Tapiwa's positive attitude. He is just 22 years old and trains other children living with disabilities. It's unbelievable.
Zimbabwe statistics say that of its population of 16 million people, more than 1.4 million have a disability. Now organizations of people with disabilities in Zimbabwe are pushing for the passage of legislation that would make law some recommendations based on the government's disability policy launched in 2021. Advocates say the current law, the Disabled Persons Act of 1992, is falling short.
If the bill is passed into law, it means so many other services that they are not accessing at the moment will be accessible. Because at the moment, our current act at the moment is outdated.
Zimbabwe's policy says disabled people should have equal rights to employment, education, and health, among other things. Government officials say some provisions of the National Disability Policy are being implemented.
The government of Zimbabwe has now set up a National Technical Committee on Disability Inclusion. This committee has representatives from all the 26 government ministries. It has representatives from organizations of persons with disabilities and our development partners as well.
Meanwhile, Mutsikira says he will keep pushing ahead and encouraging other persons with disabilities to do the same. Columbus Mavunga, VOA News, Harare, Zimbabwe.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.